This segment of the news has been brought to you by Sun Oil Limited.
Welcome back. With the country's minimum wage increasing from $210 per week to $260 for the public service workers, when questioned on the progress government has made in implementing a minimum wage increase for the private sector to match the public sector effective January 2023, Minister of Immigration and Labor Keith Bell gave reporters the following update as it relates to the livable wage.
It's going to call for a lot of consultation. It's going to call for a lot of dialogue. It's going to call for a lot of work in terms of looking at other countries and looking at the models that are out there. And there are, I think, 3 or 4 significant models that we could look at. But again, it all depends on what it is that we're able to come up with in collaboration. There has to be buy-in to livable wage by both the public and private sector, and that is key. And so I know your question is very restricted. I don't want to put a timeline, but don't only say that it is a very complex matter that we are seeking to achieve. But I am very optimistic given the expertise, the competence, and the level of depth that the National Tripartite Council have on it. And I am very confident to be able to achieve that in this administration.
There have been several meetings between the Minister, Director of Labor, Robert Fackerson, and Chairwoman of the National Tripartite Council, Sharon Martin. However, he describes the process as still being in its embryonic stage. Minister Bell admitted that finding the right model is not an easy feat.
Well, I can say that we campaigned on this. We told everybody that we were going to introduce increase in minimum wage. We did that. We told everyone, we told the country that we're moving towards a livable wage. The fact is that we cannot say that we are a Christian country, that we are a country of prosperity, and we have persons living below the poverty line. It's as simple as that. We know that inflation is increasing, and while it is a delicate balance to strike between increasing salaries, while at the same time fully appreciate the resources of the private sector and the government to ensure that we don't necessarily create an unnecessary strain on them. The fact is that we have to take care of the human resources, the labor force. So it's coming.
When asked to expand on which countries' livable wage models are being examined and considered, Minister Bell shared the following.
You can look at the developed countries, and essentially one or two of the models that I've seen is that you can either Canada, Switzerland has a very good model, Australia has one, and Singapore, especially Singapore. And what they do is that when inflation increases, then it's a sliding scale more or less. You can do that. We can do it through legislation, intervention. So those are the different models that we can look at. But again, like I say, I don't want to necessarily preempt any debate or discussion that the NTC would have with all of these sectors, but allow them the opportunity to look at the models and determine which one is best for us.
Meanwhile, on the local front, during debate on the midterm budget on Thursday morning, Foreign Affairs Minister and Minister of the Public Service, Mr. Fred Mitchell, also asked why local church leaders are not playing a bigger role in helping to tame what he described as growing rhetoric by some Bahamians when it comes to dealing with the illegal migration and shantytown issues.
My admonition to Foreign Service officers is try as much as possible, keep the Foreign Service out of the news. Keep it out of the news and out of the gossip columns. When you work overseas, go to work 9 to 5. The Public Holidays Act says what the hours of government offices are, right? You're supposed to work from 9 to 5, open 9:30 to 4:30, and that applies to foreign officers as well. That is what our obligation is in law to the public. You're not on holiday because you have been given a job overseas, and to conduct your private and public lives in such a way as to bring credit to the country.
Mr. Mitchell was explaining that CARICOM is the main thrust of the Davis administration's foreign policy, and within CARICOM there are some specific interests, one of which is the crisis in Haiti. Mr. Mitchell went on to explain that in the big scope of things, the Bahamas needs laborers, and he is confident that the government's immigration system can work to achieve a comfortable and manageable balance.
The other point I make is that the permanent secretary is the head of the Foreign Service. Even though the minister is the policy decider, so to speak, and ultimately I can give directions. Decisions in the Foreign Service are to be channeled and funneled through the permanent secretary. Loftus Roca, who was remains my good friend and once told me, even as a minister, if you call some public servant below and say, do X. The next thing when the minister gives that direction, hang up the phone. The public servant is supposed to call the permanent secretary and say, look, the minister just called me and said X, Y, and Z. What do I do? Because the accountability to the country is through the permanent secretary. And I think that all in our lives, that is why things were constructed that way, so that there is a buffer between you, the policymaker, and the politician, and the public purse.
Mr. Mitchell maintains his argument that most of the Haitian and Cuban migrants caught on the seas are destined for the United States. However, there has been growing concern by many Bahamian residents that this theory is no longer the case, and the Bahamas has now become the final destination. The government has launched a registration portal for those who own short-term rentals like Airbnbs to register your business in an effort to ensure high standards of service across vacation rentals and to ensure those owners are meeting their tax obligations. This much explained in a statement released earlier this week by the Department of Inland Revenue. According to the statement, short-term vacation rental owners will have until the end of April to register your properties through a new portal on the Department of Inland Revenue's website. Registration on the portal began on Wednesday, and Inland Revenue is expecting more than 10,000 properties to register. As an incentive to register your property, it is absolutely free for the remainder of the year, including no license fees. Acting Controller of the department, Shonda Strawn, said in the statement that thousands of short-term rental owners are operating according to different standards, as well as engaging in the unregulated rental of cars and boats. And as a result, there is a great need to regulate short-term vacation rentals industry, or to regulate that industry. She went on to say that there are also property managers overseeing properties without business licenses, and that these unregulated activities are circumventing tax obligations and having a negative impact on the local tourism market. Ms. Strawn said the move to register all vacation rentals will facilitate the maturation of the industry. The move has been criticized by some residents, accusing the government of being greedy and adding yet another tax on the Bahamian people. It took 5 months longer than expected, but after several delays, major works for the Village Road Improvement Project is finally completed, and frustrated residents, business owners, and motorists will now be able to use the popular thoroughfare. However, although the major works is done, there is still minor works to be completed, including signage, striping, and traffic lights. Albrian Simonet Jr., engineer for the Village Road Improvement Project, said during a press conference earlier this week that paving of the road was completed. He said underground works and sidewalks are also completed. While he could not give a specific date, Mr. Simonet said remaining works should take another 2 to 3 weeks. The original completion date for the $6.4 million Village Road project was September last year, but they missed that deadline and it shifted to December, then January, then February, bringing added frustration to business owners in particular. Many of those business owners on Village Road are now seeking to have the government reimburse them for lost business during those repairs. And finally, the University of the Bahamas Athletic Department will have several tryouts this month, beginning next weekend, Saturday, March 11th, with UB men's and women's soccer tryouts on Grand Bahama at the St. George's playing field. They begin at 10 a.m. next weekend. Also in Grand Bahama next Saturday, the Mingos will recruit for their men's basketball team led by Coach Bacchus Rowe. Basketball tryouts begin at 12 noon at the St. George's Gymnasium. And the following weekend, March 19th, UB Athletics returns to Grand Bahama with women's softball coach Shane Albury looking to recruit for UB's women's softball team. For more information, visit UB Athletics website at gomingos.com. That'll do it for your JCN Evening News. Once again, I'm Jarino Saunders. Thanks for joining us.
This segment of the news has been brought to you by Sun Oil Limited.